What was your biggest shit, no going back now moment? This one is quite literally a not going back moment. As a Boy Scout at summer camp, we would always take large group hikes on the last day of camp. This particular camp in West Texas was located in the middle of a deep canyon and cut through with a small stream. The day before our hike day it rained a bit, but not too much to make us worry. It was drizzling in the morning when we got up, but we were Boy Scouts, so that obviously didn't stop us. So our long hike had us cross the small stream up the canyon maybe 10 to 15 times, no problem, and everything went great. After a while we get to a medium-sized pond that we all decided to go swimming in. That was fun, and we all had a blast. We get out and dressed and we keep going farther up a hill to continue our hike. We get to the top and we hear this wonderfully ominous rushing noise. We look over a ledge and see that the water in the stream was moving a bit faster than we remembered. A friend and I volunteer to go back and see what's happened. A flash flood had ripped through the area we had just left moments before. The water in the pond was at least 7 feet higher than it was 5 minutes before, and it was covered in foam and rapidly overflowing. We decided as a group to test our luck and go back to see if we could get out, but the last stream crossing had turned into a very fast moving river crossing. Needless to say, we were fucked. We literally couldn't go back, and we had to wait a long time to get help and get to the now almost flooded camp. When I was younger, letting my older cousin talk me into a canoe ride down a flooded river. We'd planned it days in advance, but there was a lot of heavy rain in the area and the normally calm river was near flood level and quite rough. I really didn't want to do it, but I didn't want to let him down either, so I still went. I knew as soon as we saw the river this was a terrible idea. The whole thing was a shit show, and I honestly, though we were going to die, we had no control, and at one point we got stuck nose down and a large rock, knowing if we tipped out we were drowning. We somehow made it out and to the shore where we walked back with the canoe. Stepping off that sandbar I could barely reach to swim out to the girl, caught in a riptide, and not knowing how a riptide worked. It took what felt like hours, but, spoiler alert, we made it. Too early in the season for lifeguards. I remember calling out to people walking their dogs on the beach, but we were so far out they didn't even look towards us. I hopped a freight train once, and the moment it hits 15 to 20 miles per hour, you're just along for the ride. But the real no going back moment came when the train stopped on a siding outside Winnemucca. After waiting there for like 5 hours, I decided to walk into town and get some ice cream sandwiches. As soon as I got 50 yards from the train, I realized if it starts rolling now, I'll be too far away to chase it down. I'll just be stuck in this town for a while. Edit. For you kids out there, riding freight trains is *********************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************** hell. Don't do it. Also, I should point out that Winnemucca is home to some of America's best Basque restaurants, fantastic cowboy heritage sites, and it's the gateway to the Black Rock Desert. It's got something for everyone, not just stranded hobos. When I was about to get on the plane to my first semester of med school, my dad, never one for sentiment, said, "Well, you're now actually worth more dead than alive. Don't screw this up." During takeoff on my first ever flight at the age of 30, I have a real intense fear of heights. Parachute jump. My life is now no longer in my hands. Oh well. Geronimo. Psychedelics, particularly DMT, because it all happens so quickly and intensely. Walking into a MMA fight and the cage closes behind you. Getting in the ambulance after suffering a grand mal seizure from alcohol withdrawals. When I finally said enough is enough and decided I needed to quit drinking before it killed me, I thought I could detox on my own as I was terrified of hospitals. I was wrong. I spent a week detoxing in the ICU, and now, almost a full year later, I'm still *VERY* happily sober, and I'm completely thriving. Last summer I replaced my roof. Standing on the ladder at the corner of the house with a shingle stripping shovel, I just stood there for 5 minutes thinking if I wanted to do this or not. Then I ripped off the first few shingles, and there was no going back. Mountain biking with some friends on a new trail, which wasn't even a bike trail. We hiked most of the way up, since it was too steep to ride up. Carried our bikes all the way up, rested at the top for a bit, and then rolled over the edge. I remember as my front tire crested, and gravity started taking over, I thought, there's no way I'm stopping now, unless a tree stops me. Edit, wow, this really blew up. Rock on. Who all wants to get a group ride going? Canoeing over a waterfall. I ran away from an abusive home at 19. I called my dad while I was at work later that day to let him know I was okay and not to come looking for me. He's a narcissist, and I was so scared he'd tell the authorities something crazy, so they'd track me down for him like my boyfriend had kidnapped me. I'd left my car keys on the kitchen table, so he couldn't charge me with stealing it, as he bought it for me. Emptied my bank account because he was friends with the small bank owner and taken everything I could with me, and that was a pretty big one. He said you'll never make it without me and my money, and I just said I can't wait to find out. That was 7 years ago now, and I'm making it. When my abusive husband was doing his weekly ritual of interrogating me and accusing me of some made up infidelity and goes, well, what's the deal here? Are we just done? Before I could stop myself I was like, yeah we are done. He didn't know until that moment that I had already spoken to a divorce lawyer and the police and had all my ducks in a row to take the fuck off. But I was planning on actually meeting with the lawyer before I told him, so then it was 2 weeks of awful Jekyll and Hyde bullshit before I could leave. I have to say, even though I was like, oh shit, it did feel so fucking good to say it though. Fuck that guy. I made a budget yesterday to figure out how much I'd need to move out. If I work 2 more hours than planned at a starter job I've lined up, I could do it easily with all the optional expenses. That's when it hit me that I'm not in college anymore and I actually could have the money to live independently. When I laid in the bed of my psychiatric hospital's bedroom for the first time. Hiking backcountry snowboarding with a guy. Got stuck in a flat area and needed to hike out in deep powder. It was getting dark and kept coming out of thick trees to 50-foot plus cliff areas. It was getting darker and we didn't have much light left, and finally came out to another cliff area with about a 10-foot cliff, 20 feet of landing, and then a second 10-foot cliff area that had a narrow landing to an open glade. It was either go for it and don't fall and get hurt, or start making a snow tunnel and get ready to sleep on the mountain for the night at East Vale Chutes in Colorado. We both made it through the cliff jumps safely, but it was sketchy. When we got to town we both had a couple tall whiskeys in the first bar we got to, and I was still shaking. Could have possibly died if we had to stay on the mountain overnight, or got seriously hurt and then died making the jumps to get to an area we could get down as it was getting dark. But it was either jump or start making a snow shelter. We were definitely not prepared with backcountry gear and got lost in the area, even though we had both ridden it a few times with some experienced people who had taken us down before. Scary and something I will never forget. Here, try this hot wing. Took a bite, and for the next 18 hours, I could only focus on how this was a crime against humanity. And for those now asking, it was the last dab 30 on a drumstick. It was coated all over. I just ate one big bite, and then I went and shoved my head under a cold shower. Then, it was bed and bathroom for several hours as I threw up most of it, but some got digested. I knew going it that it was gonna be hot. My former roommate was a hot sauce aficionado. He never once handed me a wing that was less than a habanero sauce. The question was, am I about to have ghost, pepper X, Carolina Reaper, habanero, etc. Every time I solo traveled and arrived in a new country. Moving 1500 miles away with 2 weeks worth of grocery money and a 1-star hotel confirmation that would last 1 month to hold me over until I started making some money. Crossing the Rubicon. Packing up my car before telling my husband I was leaving. heading towards a hedge at 30 miles per hour. Airborne. Got a general anesthetic for wisdom teeth removal. After waiting what felt like an eternity in a little prep room, I was just thinking about using the restroom, just for something to do, when I'm swarmed by nurses, or whatever. Before I could react, they stuck things all over me, and one of them got the drugs in me, and I could immediately feel effects. I remember vividly thinking, well fuck, no going back now, as they wheeled me to theater. And then the procedure and recovery went as smoothly as they could have gone. When I decided to venture alone on a hiking trail through the Brazilian rainforest, realized there was no phone coverage after half an hour, kept walking for another hour, and finally saw a sign of civilization. A literal sign. Just that. It said beware of coral snakes. A bit dark, but when I took a bunch of pills in a suicide attempt. It was around 10 PM on a Tuesday night, and I had just gotten into an argument with my mom. I laid down in my bed and thought about my life, considered asking my mom to take me to the hospital, but decided against it. I thought, well, this is it. I'm dying. Then I fell asleep. I took more than the lethal dose of Seroquel XR, but somehow woke up in the morning, slow, but perfectly fine. I consider it a glitch in the matrix, but one I'm grateful for. This was in August 2019, and I'm doing a lot better now. Still struggling, but not suicidal.